Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yuna. Welcome my unicorns. Today I'll be introducing my first podcast, my Dear Diary Faith Journey with Myasthenia Gravis. So, my introduction video last week talks about this introduction of my podcast, and in this video I'll be talking about why I started this podcast and my chronic illness advocacy. So I made this Canva slide, basically goes over this podcast and it talks about this illness, and so I want to just share with you the first slide. So this podcast is a medical and faith advocacy, and it is called My Dear Diary Faith Journey with Myasthenia Gravis, or abbreviation it's also called MG or GMG. So myasthenia gravis is a chronic autoimmune disease that causes muscle weaknesses in various parts of your body, and it mostly affects your vision, but it can also affect your speech, swallowing, talking, and even in extreme cases it can affect your breathing. For just MG itself, patients that are diagnosed with MG usually starts with like double vision or droopy eyelids, but for generalized myasthenia gravis patients, you have more severe physical fatigue from other parts of your body that doesn't only impact your vision. So that's another term called generalized myasthenia gravis, or GMG. And in my podcast, I'll be going over global advocacy, awareness, faith and grace, and comfort and support from the MG community. In the podcast, I will be talking with patients with MG on how they cope with this disease and how they started this disease, sharing about treatments and how they navigate with this disease on a daily level. And I'll be also introducing people that works in the medical field, like specialists and or MG communities like MGFA, MyAware, people that works in these communities to help MG patients. So it's really exciting. Next I want to go over why I started this podcast is because of the reality when it comes to American healthcare system. So basically in 2025, Cole Schmignick, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but he is a 22-year-old college student that unfortunately died because he had to choose to basically pay his rent or to pay his inhaler, and he had an insurance plan change that skyrocketed the treatment costs of an inhaler, and unfortunately he passed. And this is unfortunately a reality for a lot of Americans nowadays with the healthcare system. Roughly 26 million Americans are uninsured. So, and I believe that 2026, we have almost 30 million Americans that would be uninsured. So this is a reality for a lot of Americans now, is that we don't have that system that can help these minority groups or people that are unemployed to get the treatments that they need. So this is unfortunately one of the things that people face every day. And I believe this podcast would help bring in just advocacy to start a change in the system, and how can we help these people to have access to treatments, and most importantly to receive help from communities. Next up, I want to talk about the price of survival. This is another big issue when it comes to myasthenia gravis. Since this is a chronic condition, it basically translates into lifetime debt. Unfortunately, this is not something that myself as an MG patient can just, just recover from. Like, I have to be on medications all the time, and I have to go to hospital visits to make sure that I'm doing well, even though, I might look normal from the outside, but there's flare-ups that happens and things might change. So this is a reason why I believe it is important to have these conversations about MG, since these kind of chronic illness that are invisible to a lot of people, we don't have that structural support from the government or the community that has the awareness of how can we help these communities. And as a college student myself too, I had struggled a lot with dealing with my stress levels, going to school, and then also going through the treatments. I struggle a lot mentally as well. So in this podcast, I really want to emphasize on not just like advocacy for treatment and systemic issues, but also like mental health awareness with this illness. And I researched a little bit. The annual cost for MG patients right now is $500,000 without insurance. So yeah, you can kind of it is a lot of money. So definitely is something that we should be worried about, right? And with insurance, it's still a pretty high amount, $14,000 to $20,000 out of pocket costs from your insurance. So these include like outpatient clinics, and then there's also like pharmacy, your pills, your hospital visits. All these cost a lot of money every year, and this is just an estimated this is just an estimated cost, but it could go even more beyond if you take into like if you got sent to like the emergency room because you needed what is it called, like the breathing machine, like if you started to have breathing problems and you need a ventilator, that's also another addition when it comes to the cost. And I researched a little bit too. Over 130 million Americans are currently fighting with 2 or more chronic illness at the same time. So that is a big number. And I think that chronic illness is a really special topic because with autoimmune diseases, it's really interesting. I believe that there's so many more autoimmune diseases that we don't know of. Like, I have 2 autoimmune diseases, and the thing with autoimmune disease is that it is hard to manage because it is a part of your body immune system wise. You're on so many immunosuppressant drugs that can affect how you fight your infections or other illnesses. And there's also a lot of other things that it's really hard to navigate with autoimmune diseases since you're constantly inflamed. And yeah, there's just a lot of issues when it comes to, or just like challenges when it comes to dealing with chronic illness. And lastly, I want to talk about the real challenge when it comes to myasthenia gravis. The first thing is the high treatment cost. So I am on a really high cost treatment right now, Ultomiris. It costs $500,000 if you're getting it without insurance. So that is something that with insurance right now, I'm able to get it. And also with Alexion, we have a copay program that helps with getting the cost to around like $0 or $60 each infusion. So that's really good. And I am currently trying to work with OneSource program to talk about how we can provide these health benefits and copay programs for people to get these treatment. Another thing I want to talk about is the uncertainty when it comes to this disease. This is known as a snowflake disease, and what it means is that like a snowflake, it is like really hard to manage for everyone. Like for example, a lot of MG patients experience their symptoms differently, and also a lot of these treatments, like, people experience the effects differently. So it is really hard to say, like, oh, this treatment will work for everyone. And for me, I tried a lot of different treatments. Vyvgart, tried IVIG, I tried plasma exchange, I also tried Restigo. There's all these treatments can look different when it comes to different people. For me, right now, I'm currently on a remission with MG, which is great. I still have a little double vision, unfortunately, but it is definitely less intense compared to a few years ago where I had a flare up for over 2 years. And with treatments, it's really hard to say which treatment works for you. And that could be really hard for people mentally, because you have to go through like insurance, getting approval, and then like potentially go into the treatment, but having all these side effects that you just can't deal with. Like, I was being sent to ER 1 year in I think 2023 or 2022. I forgot, but basically I was sent to the ER because I was experiencing a really, really severe headache, and it could be a septic meningitis, which is really deadly. But basically I was screaming in my bed and sweating, and I was just really in pain. Like, it just felt like my head is about to explode. Like, and it was very, very bad that I had to end the treatment, unfortunately. And for a lot of people that takes these like different infusions, people have different side effects, and also how we respond to the treatment differs every time we receive the treatment. So it's very, very hard. It's definitely because I have MG for 5 years now, and I want to talk a bit more about how my journey goes, but today I just want to share a little bit about my journey. And if you guys want to hear more about my journey, let me know. But most importantly, I just want to let you guys know about how this disease is different for everyone. And for this podcast, how we as a community can come together to have these conversations, to talk about our experiences, and that might benefit for the medical researchers to understand for the advancement of the treatment for medical researchers to look into. And it is a good dialogue to have between people to, find comfort, but also just like understand, like, this is not something that can just go away. I mean, miracles happen, but we definitely need like a long-term plan, and that would be very much needed from government, from our healthcare system, to create this impact with our MG community and also other chronic illness communities. We need a change with all these structural, government, socio-political people come in together to help this community. And this is the reason why I'm doing this podcast, is because I want to gather voices, I want to gather people's story, I want to talk to professionals, medical professionals, talk to people that are influential to really help advocate for this community, and especially with people that don't have access to treatments in various countries or minority groups. So that's another thing. The last point I want to talk about is the lack of structural support. As of right now, hold on. So basically, another thing is that there are over 68% of NG patients that are currently unemployed. And you can imagine how that impacts a person's ability to have insurance to even get the treatments. And then also, not just in workplaces, but when you have a chronic illness, it's really hard to maintain relationships with people, and I struggled a lot with my relationships with people because of how MG has affected me mentally. And for the workforce situation, MG reduces a person's chance of being able to work by 15% to 35%. And this is unfortunately the reality that I also face because of my double vision and my disease. I am unfortunately less likely to be employed in workforces. But the good news is that I'm a creative person and I love songwriting, singing, I love art, and I believe that God gave us a gift. Like, we all have different gifts, and for me, maybe it's my voice and maybe it's my art, but I really want to be able to use my creative voices to help advocate for people, and also just to share a little bit of like happiness with like art and music. It's just something that I'm really happy with doing. I see some of my arts in my background. I also do a little bit of floral design, and that has really helped me heal in times of hardships. Another big thing is obviously faith. Today is Easter, actually. I know when this podcast will be posted, it will be Monday, but it's currently Easter Sunday. So really praise God for just his sacrifice and his resurrection. He has risen and he has defeated sin and ultimately paid the price for all of us. And in my podcast, I really want to share my faith too. It's really hard because I had a hard time coming out to talk about my vulnerabilities, but it brings out to my last thing: my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And I believe that my weakness is, unfortunately, even though MG is really hard and I feel weak, physically weak, mentally weak a lot of times, but I'm able to rely on God and his power and his wisdom, love, and grace for me to navigate this life and to really just trust him no matter what. So in my podcast, if you have any prayer requests, let me know. And if you're interested in this podcast, go to this QR code or comment down below. Reach out to me, my email. I will pray for you and I can talk to you about MG anytime. I will do this podcast weekly, starting this week. So I will be tuned into my next podcast to talk about more about faith, about art, music, and MG. So yeah, tune in to my next podcast. I hope you enjoy this podcast. I got this really cool microphone. I hope this works, but I just wanted to have a more casual podcasting. I don't have a lot of material equipments, but I'm trying my best to have a more, I'm trying my best to show my most authentic self with the limited equipments and fans I have right now. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of fans right now, but I believe that it will still reach to the people that need this just community, and we can start together. So join in my unicorn family. Check out my art, music. Sorry, it's just cat. Cat. Okay, but check out my art, music.